Let's talk about one of the most consequential road trips in all of history. Seriously. It was a journey that was supposed to save a monarchy, but instead, it ended up being the very thing that destroyed it. This is the story of the King's Great Escape. So just imagine this for a second. The most powerful person in the entire country, a king, has to disguise himself and try to sneak out of his own kingdom. What could possibly go wrong? Well, for Francis King Louis XVI, the answer was pretty much everything. The year is 1791. The French Revolution is heating up big time. For a while now, new ideas about liberty and people's rights had been spreading, and the ground was literally shaking beneath the throne. King Louis and his family are basically under house arrest in the Tuileries Palace in Paris. Revolutionaries are watching their every move. The royal family feels completely trapped, and the Queen, Marie Antoinette, thinks there's only one option left. And that one option? A super risky, super desperate escape plan. You know, this wasn't just about saving their own skins. In their minds, they were trying to save the entire system of government that had ruled France for centuries. And that system was, of course, the monarchy. Now, what's a monarchy? It's a government where a king or a queen is in charge, and they inherit that power through their family line. For Louis XVI, being king wasn't just a job, it was his birthright, and he could feel it slipping right through his fingers. The plan itself sounds like something out of a movie. They were going to disguise the entire royal family as servants, sneak out of the palace in the middle of the night, travel all the way to a town near the border that was still loyal to the king, raise an army, and then march back to Paris to take back control. It was a massive gamble, but they really felt like they had no other choice. But this so-called perfect plan, it pretty quickly turned into a total journey of errors. It was like one mistake just piled right on top of another. Yeah, the problem started almost immediately. They were supposed to leave on time, but they ended up leaving hours late. Their getaway carriage was this huge custom-built thing that was incredibly slow. It was only moving at about 7 miles an hour. And by the time they got to the spot where they were supposed to meet their military escort, the soldiers had already given up waiting and just left. It was one disaster after another, right from the start. You can just feel the tension rising, can't you? They were in a race against the clock. Every single delay, every minute they wasted just dramatically increased the chances that they were going to get caught. And eventually, their luck ran out. This is the moment when the whole escape plan just completely and totally collapsed. And who brought them down? A whole army? Nope. It was one guy. A local postmaster named Jean-Baptiste Drouet just happened to spot the king's face. And how did he recognize him? From the picture on a banknote he had in his pocket. How wild is that? Drouet immediately hopped on his horse, took a shortcut through the woods, and beat the king's slow carriage to the next town. He warned everybody, they blocked the bridge, and just like that, the escape was over. Cornered, exhausted, King Louis finally admitted who he was. He tried to reason with the townspeople, saying he loved his country and was just trying to keep his family safe. But really, it was far, far too late for all that. So, the secret journey was over. And what came next was the complete opposite, a very public spectacle. The long road back to Paris became this awful parade of humiliation for the entire royal family. Just think about the contrast here. Their escape from Paris was secret and it was filled with hope. The journey back to Paris was a 4-day crawl, surrounded the whole way by massive, angry crowds screaming insults at them. But when they finally got back to Paris, the shouting actually stopped. And it was replaced by something that, for a king, is way more terrifying. Absolute, bone-chilling silence. The new government had ordered everyone not to make a sound. So thousands of people just lined the streets and stared as the carriage went by. And the men, who would normally take their hats off as a sign of respect for the king, very deliberately kept them on. Now that might seem like a small thing, but it was a massive statement. It showed that any respect that people had for the monarchy was completely dead. Okay, so this brings us to the final and maybe the most important part of the story, the consequences, because this failed escape was truly the point of no return for the French monarchy. The French people felt totally betrayed. See, before the escape, a lot of them still held out hope that the king was on their side, that he supported some of the revolution's goals. But by trying to run away, he basically proved he was a traitor who was abandoning them. That bond of trust between the ruler and his people, it was shattered permanently. And the result was this huge shift in what people wanted. Before the escape, the idea of actually getting rid of the king was pretty radical. But afterwards, support for something new, a republic, just skyrocketed. So what's a republic? It's a totally different system. Instead of a king who inherits all the power, a republic is a country where the power belongs to the people and they vote for their own leaders. After the king's failed escape, this started to seem like the only logical way forward for France. The fallout was swift. The king lost all his credibility, and the government took away his powers. More radical revolutionary groups got way more popular, and they started demanding an end to the monarchy for good. This one event really pushed France down a more extreme, more violent path, one that would eventually lead to the execution of both the king and queen. In fact, a lot of historians point to this exact event, the flight to Varennes, as the moment the monarchy symbolically died. Sure, it limped on for a little while longer, but in the hearts and minds of the French people, it was already over. And the great irony in all of this is that the one desperate act that Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette thought would save their throne was the very thing that guaranteed their downfall. So that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The royal family thought this escape was their only shot at saving the monarchy. But in the end, did it actually offer any chance of salvation, or did it just guarantee its destruction? It really goes to show how a single decision can change the entire course of history.